Hi everybody, Chatting with Chops here again. Have you ever wondered what you're supposed to do with 2 pounds of strawberries? I know the first thing that's going to come to your mind is strawberry shortcake, but today I've decided we're going to make a strawberry pie. So let's see if it turns out. So the first thing we want to do is, of course, we got to get our greens off. And the recipe says just to cut them in half. Now these bigger ones I'm going to cut in fours, just to make it a little bit more manageable. Nothing real rocket science here. Ooh, that one's super mushy. Yeah, we bought these strawberries for a wonderful event we were having from my little vegan, and we made a vegan strawberry shortcake, which is a special recipe. I'll link it so that you guys can see it if you want to, but it's just where you have to make the cakes a little different. But then we had a bunch of strawberries left over, so I said, well, we should make something else. And that's when hubby found a recipe online for a strawberry pie. So you do not have to make a homemade pie crust. You can buy one at the store and nobody is going to judge you. Definitely not here at this channel. But I like to try and make my pie crust from scratch just because I'm not very good at it. So I'm trying to practice and do it more. So the first thing I want to do is I want to put 1 1/4 cups flour in my big bowl. And then I'm going to take my 1/2 teaspoon of salt and put it in my bowl. And I'm going to mix that up. All right. And then I'm going to put in my shortening. Now I have 1/3 cup of vegetable shortening. So we use vegetable shortening in this house because we do have a vegan. So I have 1/3 cup on my little plunger measuring cup. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in. And then I'm going to take my little flour blender and cut this shortening into the flour. You don't have to have one of these. You can use a fork. It's not a problem. I just enjoy using this. And of course, it wouldn't be me if I wasn't spraying ingredients everywhere. I always say I should have named my channel The Messy Cook. See, I'm just cutting the vegetable shortening into the flour, just trying to get it to small little pieces. You definitely don't want your pie crust to have big chunks of vegetable shortening in it. That's not going to be very appetizing for people. Okay, and then I got a little bit of shortening caught up on my cutter here, so I'm going to knock it off. And then keep breaking it in. And I'm just going to make sure that the pieces look pretty small. This is when your cold water comes into play. So we're going to take and start adding cold water to our pie mixture here. And I'm going to add 1. And I'm going to add 2. And then I've switched over to a fork. And I'm just going to keep scraping that in and trying to get my crust to come together. It's by doing it with my hands. So I'm just going to start squeezing that together so that I can get that shortening to kind of come into my flour and salt mixture. There's no real fancy technique to this. I'm just clean hands and a bigger bowl so that you're not losing a whole bunch of your pie crust. What I'm going to do now is it's still not coming together all the way like I want it to. So I'm going to add a little bit more shortening. And I'm just adding a couple of little dabs, and we're going to see if that works. That was the suggestion I got from my family members, because usually I just start adding more water. Okay, yeah, actually, that's doing really well. And it's, you know, you have to remember, recipes, the same person, you know, you can have 100 different people make the same recipe and it'll all turn out different. Measure it out and get it ready for our pie plate. Okay, what I like to do is do my pie crust between saran wrap. To me, it just seems to not stick as much to everything, and it just seems to spread out really well. So I'm going to give that a good beginning. Okay. And I'm just going to try and get this flattened out. I want to try and get it as wide as I can. See how much the saran wrap cooperates sometimes, and other times it does not. And see, today it's not. All right, let's try this again. Okay. And all you're trying to do is get it wide enough for your pie plate. You really want to try to get it as even as possible so that the dough is not too thick in one spot and too thin in another. And then when you start seeing you have these little tears, I usually try and come in and just kind of touch them together. Kind of mend that before you get started. All right. We're getting there. I got a little time today, so I can work with trying to do a homemade one. Okay, so now is when we're supposed to be able to just lay this right over our pie plate. Oh my goodness, that's pretty good for me. Oh, wow. I'm happy to report my pie crusts usually taste good. They just don't look as pretty as I would like them to. So again, that's just cosmetics that I can work on as I go. You know, you just get better and keep trying. And I will say I don't make a lot of pies. So some of that I attribute to the fact that I just don't have a whole lot of practice. Maybe I'll give you guys a bunch of pie recipes and pie videos this year. All right. So let's see what kind of pie crust. Let's see, and then I'm just going to take these extra little pieces that I have and try and fix this little tear over here. There we go. So what we need to do is we need to prick the bottom with a fork. And basically what that does is that makes it where you don't have bubbles pop up. Okay. So we are going to cook this. All right, so we have the oven at 450. We're going to put our beautiful pie crust in. And we're going to let it cook for about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, let's get this beautiful pie crust out of the oven. Oh, isn't he pretty? All right. Put him up there. And we're just going to let him cool completely, and then we'll keep making our strawberry pie. All right, so it is time to make our strawberry mixture. So we're going to put our pan on kind of low, between low and medium. My stove is very aggressive, so we need to be careful about where we put it. The recipe says medium, but you need to be careful where you put it on your stove. And then I'm going to take and put 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar in. And we are going to stir this until it is all dissolved. And then while we're doing that, while we're letting that heat up, I have made in a bowl, I've done a slurry of 1/3 cup of water and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. So we've got that all mixed in. We're going to need that in a minute. And then we're also going to add in our multiple cups of strawberries. I just cut up all the strawberries I had, so. All right. There we go. And now we're just going to keep stirring that. And I'm kind of mashing them down as I'm doing this, which is not so much a problem because, like I said, my strawberries were a little bit older, so they're kind of mushy a little bit now already. All right, we're starting to get a boil here. Well, we're starting to get some bubbles. We're not at a boil yet. Okay, I'm going to say that's a boil. So we're going to start by putting in our cornstarch mixture that we made earlier. Get all that in there. And then we're going to start our timer for 2 minutes because she was very clear that you are not to boil this past 2 minutes. Otherwise your pie will not firm up. So we're just going to continuously stir this. It says that the mixture should go clear. I have no idea how this is possibly going to go clear considering the fact that it is pink and strawberry. I don't know how that's supposed to go clear, but we're going to keep an eye on it. All right, we're really close to passing our 1 minute mark. It's still very pink and very strawberry. We definitely got a good boil going on. And it is definitely thick. There's nothing clear about that. All right, guys, you know I always want to do the safe than sorry. We are a little over a minute, so I'm going to go ahead and take this off the heat. So I'm going to stir this a little bit more. I just want to take off a little bit of this heat because it's basically telling me I'm supposed to pour this into my pie crust and then stick it in my refrigerator. And I'm thinking this is going to make everything else in my refrigerator boiling hot. So I'm going to just stir a little bit of this heat out. And then I'm going to pour it into our beautiful pie plate. All right, everybody ready? We're going to pour this into our beautiful pie crust. Fingers crossed this turns out. Oh, that's gorgeous. All right, let's get all this goodness in the bottom. Oh my goodness, I think that was just exactly the right amount. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and let this sit here on the counter for a few minutes just to cool off a little bit. And then we're going to stick this in the fridge. And it is saying, the recipe is saying that you can do it for a couple of hours, chill it, and then enjoy it. But it says it's really better if you do it overnight. So I'm going to put this in the fridge and just let it cool overnight. And we will try it tomorrow and see how it tastes. All right, let's see how it did. We have let it sit and chill overnight. And I'm going to try and see if I can cut a piece. You know, the first piece is always the hardest to get out. So we shall see. Okay. Wish me luck. Woo. Let's try that side again a little bit. Okay. Well, it's definitely not soggy because it's not pouring everywhere, so that's good. Okay, look at that. That is just absolutely gorgeous. We have a beautiful piece of strawberry pie here. Look how wonderful that turned out. Hope y'all like this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will bring y'all along for the next bake.